Welcome back, and we're getting ready to move into our first conversation for today. The topic of discussion is the role of the Integrity Commission. And joining us this morning to be able to have this discussion is Attorney at Law Richard Dickie Bradley. Good morning and welcome.
Morning to you, Marlene, and morning to you, my brother.
Yes, sir.
How are you guys this morning?
Excellent.
We're good. It's Monday morning, and there's a lot to discuss. There's been a lot that happened last week, particularly the swearing in of the members of the Integrity Commission. And I'm certain that Belizeans want to know what is the role of this particular task force or this group. Let's begin by talking about the Integrity Commission. What was it set up to accomplish?
All right, before I go there to that very boring subject, let me try and give your viewers a little background in relation to how Integrity Commission kind of fit into the situation. I'm sorry to start off by saying that Belize got its independence towards the end of 1981. So we're still like a really new country, a new democracy. We're still the field away. Lots of things we don't know about that we should know about. So I wanted to start off this morning by saying that first of all, in our democracy, in our system of government, there is the highest law, which is called the Constitution. And that Constitution provides for a number of almost vital institutions in order to have good governance, in order to make sure the democracy is working and that citizens feel comfortable under whichever government they are functioning. That Constitution, as every school child knows, set out the three big organs of the state. The one that make the law, the legislature, the ones who in fact go about implementing those laws and make policies, the executive, which is made up of the cabinet and the public service, and then of course the all-important judiciary, because they in fact interpret the law, they pronounce upon whether it's a good law between government and citizens or between citizens and so on. Those are the big organs that you can't have a good democracy if those are not functioning correct. The difference between democracy and dictatorship is that in fact everything is in the hands of the dictator and his cronies and colleagues, whereas in democracy it spreads out, and the more you could spread out, the more participation, the better for democracy. Having said that, the Constitution also provides for a number of crucial institutions. The House of Representatives have to be the highest one, because then this is direct democracy. You go to elections, you vote for a person, he represents a constituency, he's an elected member of the House of Representatives. Okay, then you will have the cabinet, the ministers, the ministries, and departments where public officers are involved. In fact, the Constitution goes out of its way to have, I think, almost a chunk of it on the public service, on the Public Services Commission, which, like Integrity Commission, has an important role to play. Yes, crucial, because you want public officers to be impartial. You don't want them to be caught up into the party politics and to be biased, one-sided, and keep their mouth shut when wrongdoing is going on. They have to be a professional body who can't be intimidated by the politicians. Remember, and this is not true, but I'm saying it, remember, the enemy are the politicians. They're the ones who are breaking the law. They're the ones who do all kind of thing, and people don't know how to bring them to account. You will have other institutions like the Election and Boundaries Commission, which the Constitution provides for. You have individuals like, say, the Commissioner of Police, the Permanent Secretaries, Chief Executive Officers, the Director of Public Prosecutions. You even have, in fact, a section on the consolidated funds of the country, which is the account where you put in government money, and which is subject to the Accountant General, the Auditor General, and to public transparency, because those bodies are required to make a report to the National Assembly. So you have several institutions. Integrity Commission is not one of those. A law was passed for the Integrity Commission. But I would also want to say something to your viewers, that because of the level of education we are in Belize, and also because of the important role that the media plays. There's nothing in the Constitution about the media, except In Trinidad, they specifically have a section on the media. But in Belize, it's a broader thing where there is freedom of expression. And you can't prevent anyone from being able to express their views, provided not the libel and the fame and scandal people. And in fact, the media is protected under the freedom to be able to gather information and to propagate information. So against that background. Also, I want to mention that because we are now questioning, because this government and perhaps the last government has helped to open our eyes, if I could borrow your slogan for your show, have helped to open the eyes of people. People are distrustful of government, and rightly so, and people question things, and people are starting to look more. The media especially have really done a fantastic job in a number of areas where it involves bringing matters to the attention of the nation. Now, the big thing before we get to Integrity Commission, boring matter, is that are the institutions of the country working? And or is it the people, the persons who are appointed to these things who they let we down in the country? Because remember, we only 35 years of age, so we don't have a culture of why I know a party to no wrongdoing. I will say something or I will leave. We don't have that culture. We are intimidated, we are fearful. There's a radio station dedicated every morning just to attack persons who are not supporters of the party, who dare to speak up or suggesting. All they do is attack people, personalities. So that big question is it a failure of the system, or is it a failure of the people who are there to see that the system works as best it can? Or is it a combination of both?
I would say a combination. I want to touch on something, because I appreciate you pointing out the establishment of commissions in other areas, because essentially the Integrity Commission, like the Public Service Commission, are set up to do the checks and balances of the daily functioning. Now, let's talk about good governance. It's kind of a buzzword that we hear every time around elections. Good governance and transparency. Lately, we've been talking a lot about corruption as well. Now, these all go hand in hand. Essentially, your Integrity Commission is one of those bodies that is set up, or designed, I should say, to be able to ensure that if there is any wrongdoing by those who are elected or appointed into particular positions, that one, it will be detected, and two, it will be rectified. In a democratic country, or in Belize specifically, where we have lost faith in a lot of the institutions, because like the Integrity Commission that has been defunct, like the challenges we've seen in the Public Accounts Committee, what is provided for in the policies or the guiding documents behind these commissions to ensure that once in place, they can be able to do the work?
All right, I think that in management, they kind of want to teach you that one monkey now make the whole circus. It's not about one person. You could have a good leader, a good manager, and so, but you need in place systems, you need procedures, you need oversight, you need monitoring, scrutiny, you need checks and balances. Let me make this point to you to show how, and I want to say this, our institutions in Belize, they are not working. And the general view is that the persons who are appointed to these institutions, to these committees, commissions, whatever they are not doing their duty to God and to Belize. They really let down. And I think part of it, though, Marlene, part of it is because, listen, the people who appoint persons to those things are not looking for the quality that is needed to run these institutions. Then they look to stack it up with cronies and people who are politically in tune with them. You don't have to, so many people have to call in and say, boy, listen, we really need you to make sure that so and so and so not happen and what. Now, because they don't know that the way they did it for. So let me make this point now, because this will probably answer your question a little. After a general election in this country, and the House of Representatives meets, one of the first order of business is that the law that governs them, the standing orders for the House of Representatives, a copy of which I brought with me for in case I need to refer to it. The standing orders, the rules, the law that governs them require that shortly after you get into office, having been given this massive trust by the people of Belize, is that there are to be standing committees, meaning these are established committees that need to be staffed.
Yeah.
The standing committees are made up of the parties which are in our parliament, which is called the National Assembly, which in this case the House of Representatives. Because I repeat myself by saying to you, the Senate is a rubber stamp. It was designed for that. People are looking to the Senate for somehow for saving, or some people they call upon the Governor General to do this, and they can't do that. They are not there for that.
Well, before we close, we'll talk about the 13th Senator for a bit. But
let me tell you, Section 72 or Rule 72 are the standing of the orders for the House of Representatives require that there are standing committees, means those committees must be in place. You can have other committees, which would then be select committees set up to deal with a particular matter. And so let me get ahead of myself and say to you, for example, there is no committee that they look on the situation in the Saskatoon River, which has been taken by Guatemala for nearly 3 years now. There's no committee about ICJ. You could probably fit it under one of the, not one, but you could fit it in if you want to, but those are matters of signal importance. You would think a nation next door to us, which is claiming half of us, there's a committee of the House of Representatives that
Which
deals with everything that, yes, man, they don't have
let me,
that.
I want to,
Yeah.
Let's go back a bit. From what I've gathered in terms of my understanding of the dynamics within the composition of this particular body, politics and allegiances play a huge role in how the Integrity Commission is comprised. Speak to us a bit about that and why most of us are a bit cynical that there isn't much that's going to take place because you're looking at UDP and PUP members.
You're cynical with good reasons. The National Assembly, the House of Representatives, is required to have a standing committee on finance and economic development, on public utilities and transport, on health, human development, rural development, culture. Each one of these things I'm calling out, education and sports, this would be one, and the Constitution and foreign affairs, which could deal with the ICJ thing. There's one on works, anything that the government is building, the so-called new monster that they created called BIL.
Yeah.
Belize Infrastructure Limited, so that they can steal money and waste money. That could go under the Works Committee. Public Service, there is a standing committee, and many standing committees, and they are comprised of the ruling party, which has the majority in the House, and of the opposition. The first fault of that is, of course, we need more political parties in our National Assembly. We've been stuck between Tweedledum and Tweedledee. We get what we call 6 or 1 and a half, a dozen of the other.
Monkey and black bag.
I don't want to use black, but yes, you're correct. It's just an example that you just switch from the same thing to the same thing. So that is one of the faults in the system. Where we get our system from, they are multi-party, you know. It is true that in the British system, the Conservative Party and the Labour Party are the two dominant parties, but there are several other parties. In fact, the Liberal Party came to government on more than one occasion in that country. So let me say this. These committees, they know the function. Have you ever heard, except for the 1 or 2 where they're required to say, have you ever heard that that committee is meeting, that it will go to PG, it will come to Belize City, it will discuss this issue? Never. These committees don't work, you know.
Let me throw something
So
here.
to answer your question, and we get into the details
We
of
can
that,
be cynical. That's what you want to see.
Yeah.
All right. Let me throw something in here. I understand, and I think it's very clear to see that Belizeans oftentimes see these systems that are in place and feel that they simply cannot and will not work. And those of us who are aware of how the appointments are made understand the political affiliations at times that are associated with these commissions, and sometimes the background activities that connect these appointed persons. But let me give you an example of the Attorney General. For a very long time, people look at the Auditor General, sorry. For a very long time, people looked at it and said they would never be able to get information out. We have a current situation where a special Senate Select investigation is taking place based on a report that came out of the Auditor General's office. It clearly showed how difficult it was for her to be able to get access to the information. But she was able to identify in a massive report just over the course of 2 years some clear breaking of protocol taking place within a ministry that we have known to be what did
problematic.
What did the Prime Minister call it?
So
hotbed of corruption. So I give you that example for the simple fact that yes, we are cynical at what these bodies and these appointed persons are capable of doing, but the Auditor General is an example of where you may not be able to execute your job as efficiently as you'd like, some information can still come out. If we are to use that example in the Integrity Commission, what is placed as their responsibilities and what are the procedures that are in place, or how far is their reach? What type of teeth does the Commission have to be able to continue along the lines of what we've seen with the Auditor General?
All right, let's get a little information on the Integrity Commission, and then we could look at whether these things are just a legal fiction. The way people think the Governor Generals have power and could do something, and so I think the Governor General does not. The Integrity Commission is a section of a relatively new law, came into being in 2007, took effect January of 2008. It's called the Prevention of Corruption Act. In there is an attempt to try and put in place some systems and procedures to try and deal with the matter of corruption. Because corruption is a cancer, corrosive thing that is eating.
A malignant tumor.
It's a malignant tumor. It's even more than just malignant. I mean, it is killing us. It is stymieing the country. If you jump on the other side of our society and you hear what we seem to be accepting, that it's almost 50% of our people who are living in poverty. Give me a break, man. There are people who have to walk long distances to get water to drink. There are lots of people who are not going to school, or they drop out from primary school level. Look what has happened. I think it is you, Marlene, that made the report that the figures for murders last year is like we get numb to all these problems of the society. So corruption is a major part, because the money that you steal, the money you waste to buy a government vehicle for $80,000, then drive it all over the place, park, have no control, parts, petrol, and so deprives the poorer classes of getting assistance. When you suck out $50 million out of the Social Security Fund and hand it over to BTL, you don't increase the benefits, you don't make allowance for further situations, you do nothing. Those are problems that cause other problems. So, the Integrity Commission is a section in a wider act to deal with this problem of corruption. This act it starts out by saying that this act is really to strengthen and to provide measures in order to prevent and combat corruption, which is a big joke, because from January 2008 till now there has been no Integrity Commission.
It's been totally defunct.
How that could happen in our society? Because one accountant never won a job. Excuse me, don't we have judges and magistrates from abroad, from our Caribbean? We got one people now in the Caribbean, we got one passport. So, for 9 years now, because on the 7th of February 2008, government change, and a few weeks' time will be 9 years, there's been no Integrity Commission.
Up until last week.
Well, they only just put together.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's really no Integrity Commission. So what is the Integrity Commission? The commission is a fancy word. It's like a committee. It's a bigger word for committee. The commission is required to be chaired by an attorney at law, because the work involves a lot of legal work, a lot of understanding of infringing upon people's rights, smearing their name for no good cause, and so on. So there has to be a chairman who is an attorney at law with at least 5 years experience. They're also required to have a qualified accountant. Chartered accountant is the word they use, who is a member of that association. The law also requires that there is a forensic person who can really do in-depth investigation if that is necessary. A senior accounts clerk. So there is 7 persons that make up the commission, and 2 of those persons are appointed by the Prime Minister with the agreement of the leader of the opposition. That's 2. And the others are appointed by the Prime Minister. You don't get a hand already. You don't get a hand. Because the problem in our society is the problem of politicians. They are searching for the areas of least resistance. So don't expect. You see, the society where we get these laws and these traditions from is a far more advanced society. They would not
tolerate. It's an assumption of good faith.
That is correct.
Yes.
And not only that, it would not be tolerated. The person would feel obliged to resign if there was some major scandal of himself or his ministry. That is not our culture.
And I think that's a very valid point, because where the system that it is mirrored from, the individuals feel accountable to the wider public, which is why we want to educate the public as to what this commission is in place to do. We have seen where the Belize National Teachers Union has forcefully put these issues back on the agenda. The 13th Senator, the Integrity Commission, the signing of the UNCAC. And I think when people are aware of what an Integrity Commission can and should do, then we won't be sitting back and saying, let the Governor General do it. We'll know specifically what about the Integrity Commission. So let's go back to what they should be able to do.
All right. The Integrity Commission, who is appointed, as I said to you, by politicians, who unfortunately stuck. All these things are stuck by ponies and people who are loyal to the 2 parties. So listen to the waste of time. All right. The Integrity Commission deals with persons in public life. And the law defines who is a person in public life. All members of the National Assembly, the House of Representatives and the Senate. The poor senators, why should they be subjected to that? Because they do nothing. They just take the stamp and put it on whatever is sent to them. That is their job, you know. It's a legal fiction. It's like the Governor General. A law does not come into effect until the Governor General signs the law. Why the Governor General want to sign one law like that? One law where stop Belizeans from going to the Saskatoon. How you could pass a law where you can't go to your own piece of land, your own territory? Excuse me, the governor shouldn't sign it, the governor shouldn't sign it. The governor have to sign it because the law says so. Then just today as window dressing, you know, that's just a bogus system.
Well, we know the senators don't appreciate hearing that. And no, I said we'll talk about the 13th Senate,
but
and we
the
can
truth
talk
has
about
to be
that,
told. When Farrakhan came to Belize on one of his visits, and he was addressing a large gathering at Bird's Isle on the first visit, I think it was. I mean, there was a huge turnout for him, bigger than the 3rd visit. And he said, listen, if you don't want to offend people, it's best you just die, you know, because you will always say or do something to offend people. You can't carry on as a human being on the planet without offending people. All right, so the law applies to persons in public life. House of Representatives, Senate, and City Council and Town Councillors. That's all. Provision is made that they can add on public officers or groups of public office. For example, people in the Ministry of Land should have already been added there so that you could know, because you know they said that Belize, if they're not so nearly so, the amount of land which some of them people have, the amount of money they've accumulated by selling public lands, Customs Department, Immigration Department, those things should have already been added so that those persons have to say, this is my amount of money, this is the land I have, and every year I want to know how you to go up by 20 more lots, how you to go up by 100, 500,000.
And this is where,
you're essentially required to declare your assets.
Yes, I was coming to that.
Yes, which I find to be rather interesting, because when you look at some of these politicians and the amount of wealth that they have amassed over time, and when they are asked openly, well, how did you acquire such wealth? some of the answers they give you
They win
clearly
They win Bolido.
too regularly to where they become millionaire. But
that
some of the
listen,
answers that are given,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous how they would have been able to amass such bounty, so to speak,
Yeah.
off of doing small little things.
Well, that explains why there has been no integrity commission for 9 years.
Well, it's
You the,
interesting.
listen, you the put cheese front on rat, and when you snatch it and go back in and want to know why the rat guy in the cheese. Hey man.
And this is the purpose of disclosing your assets.
Yeah.
If a person enters office and discloses their assets, this is how much I own. This is what is in my
From year to year.
my bank accounts. This
Yeah.
is, and I do it every single year. And the Integrity Commission should, in theory, be able to recognize if I am making more money than I should and start to question.
And you can justify
where.
making the
Yeah.
money, fine, because
If
you
you
are,
did win the lotto, then all right, we
Yeah,
understand
yeah.
why the extra
Why
money
there's a
is in
jump,
your
yes.
yes. But if not,
yeah.
then you are responsible
to
give an
explain
be able
and
to
show,
explain.
or be held.
Give an account of the funds.
Right. So, all right, there is an actual form in the law that persons in public life are required to fill out and to say what are their assets and their liabilities, and that is then sent in to the commission. The commission should be staff. I don't know, is the commission staff?
Well, they just got sworn in
What's
last
that?
week.
No, no, there. No, no, there.
It exists.
Huh?
It exists.
On paper, because there is no. there
You're
is
a
no-
lawyer, Dickie. If they've been sworn
That's
in,
why
they
I'm telling you.
exist.
No, that's why I'm telling
But it's
you.
in its nascent stage nonetheless. If
Go
they
again?
It's in
No
its
use that word. No
nascent-
use nascent. No use that word.
Well, if they
So-
just start, if
It
they
just
just
start,
started
it just
last
start.
week, then I think
Uh-huh.
it's still formative. Would it not be?
Yes, but that is my point. There is no commission in the sense that it's not functioning because
There's no
the
functioning
staff.
commission as yet.
So you get what again.
Agreed. But let's go
There's
back
a start.
to yes.
All right, there is a form called a declaration. It is to be sworn to by these ministers and persons in public life. I swear that the information is true, etc. And you give all the information. And then from year to year, the commission is looking to see if there's anything irregular about it. You could be somebody who live like me. I have 3 shoes, I have so much short time. I could save some money. I'm not extravagant, you know. If I had sweetheart, they would be mining. Me and me are mining, so I don't need no extra money. I don't drink whiskey. I don't drink at all. So I could say, well, listen, that leave $20,000 we are seeing on my thing. If you look every month and whatnot, I don't touch one part of my salary because I'm able to save. So they can give explanations if the commission sees something looking suspicious. The commission is empowered to, in fact, inquire and investigate into anything that comes to their attention, including complaints from persons who might know that something they go on. And so that provision is in the law, but as I've said to you, I need to tell people, and you know, I'm like Isani, I'm a little, well, I'm not a little, I'm very cynical in the matter. Because, listen man, there's been months and months of wrangling over will this chartered accountant be a member or not? In the meantime, you got all the arrangements so that you have the staff. Or the staff could have been there, and in fact, the submission of declarations could have been going on in the interim period. The law doesn't say that if the commission is not appointed that you're not sending no declaration.
This is a very key point, because this follows up exactly on the interviews that took place after the swearing in with the chairperson of the commission, Marilyn Williams, who is an attorney. The question was posed to her whether or not the work of the Integrity Commission would go back into the previous years. In other words, we know, and the third parties have been saying for some time, that our elected representatives are not, in fact, declaring their assets when they go into office. There's also a fine if you haven't declared your assets that you have to pay. The question was posed, and essentially the answer was they want to start from a clean slate. Now, my question to you is, does the Act provide for them to be able to do so? How do they make a decision whether we will forgive what has happened before our establishment and only start from this point forward?
The law is silent on that matter.
Okay.
But it is said that the law is grounded in common sense. A famous writer who was, I think he got a law degree, had made a half disparaging statement about the law, which I can't repeat because it sounds like bad word. You know, the law is on Jack A.
So it doesn't clearly say
the law
that
would not
their
say
mandate
because
is to go back.
the law cannot and would not and could not contemplate that in any democracy you will have no integrity commission for 9 years. The law would not believe that.
But based on what is in the law, it
Yes.
is within their capacity to
It
do
would
so.
be because then you have to submit your declaration to the Integrity Commission. How can you, like you send an email but you don't got the email address to send it upon and send it?
Okay.
How can you submit your declaration if there is no commission? Hence the reason that there is no commission, Marlene. Yeah? So
it is not
on that
retroactive.
point, because the law says that within 3 months after you get in office, you make your submission on the previous one. Well, we just in January, there's just been an election in November over a year ago. So it's silent on that matter. Can I just add to you that the law, because you brought it up just now, the law provides for penalties. It is an offense not to comply with the requirements of submitting, answering questions, and putting in your form. If they take you to the magistrate court, it's like up to $2,000 for the first offense. The second offense is that, listen, if you're making $500,000 a year,
$2,000 is nothing.
Yes.
And that's the thing. That like you tell me you have $500,000 worth of rose would only pay $1,000 fine. It doesn't add up.
Yeah,
But it shows how there needs to be a strengthening of what is currently in place.
Sorry? The second offense is, I think, like $3,000 and
It's on a step-up basis.
and or prison for the second offense. But by the time you don't unravel the first offense, a time for another election and so on and so forth. So, but there are penalties. There are penalties when you're required to submit the information and you don't. It's $100 every day until you submit it.
So outside of public assets,
Yeah.
monitoring public assets, monitoring assets of public
Persons in public life, no?
What
Yeah.
else is under the mandate? If you can quickly go through, because we need to wrap up this segment.
Okay, the wrap up already?
Yeah.
All right, how time flies when you're having fun. Listen, any money, any reward, any gift, any fees, any properties, anything with value over $2,500, you're required to answer for that. How you get about it? Anybody where they influence people, if you do a number of things, one of which I found was most interesting, is that if you influence people to vote for you, it's an offense, you know. If you influence people to vote for you, or the other way around. Because let me make this point here and show you how the standing committees from the highest body in the land, our parliament, is a failure and a joke. Why would we think the Integrity Commission will work when nothing else is working? Look at this. The leader of the opposition goes to the House of Representatives and says, we have come into possession of irrefutable evidence that just before the 2012 elections, over 2,000 voters were quickly added on the voters list. And he gave a breakdown in which a large number are our Central American brothers and sisters. The committee that has a responsibility for the elections and the democratic process should have, that happened? We will have a meeting. We need to find out how that happened. Why, Marlene? Because if you don't plug that hole, when another crowd come in, they will repeat that same thing and use it to their advantage.
Yeah.
See? So things like that shows you that, all right, what else happened? I mentioned quickly the matter of the Sarstoon. How can there not be any discussion in Parliament over what happened to the Sarstoon?
I hear
Right.
where the cynicism comes from, and I think it is the same sentiment across the country. But I'll leave
with justification, no?
Absolutely justified, and from experience we have learned this. But I leave with this, I'll close off with this one point. It will not be the politicians who will decide to appoint people who will execute the work efficiently. It will be similar to how the Integrity Commission came into place, where the people will demand that the representatives will be able to execute. And the only way we can do that if we keep on educating them as to what these commissions are established to do. And with that, we have to wrap up this segment, Dickie. So we got some information out about what the Integrity Commission is supposed to do, and we understand why the expectations are low. This is a public sentiment as to whether or not they will execute their mandate. if they are listening or if they have been monitoring, I'm sure they will respond. But essentially, I think they also have a responsibility as members of an integrity commission to execute their duties, and we can only hope that they'll do so. You may not believe it, but we can still hope, right? Thank you.
You're always welcome.
All right. We're going to go ahead and take our break. And when we come back, we're going to be joined by the U.S. Ambassador to Belize for his exit interview. So stay tuned.